So hi, I'm Caylen Mims. I'm a creative technologies major and a business minor. Outside of school, when I'm not working or working on a school project, I like to work on my favorite project, my daughter Rose. You look on your left, you'll see her on my shoulders at the park. And on the right, this is a picture of her at the pumpkin patch. Now, before I dive too deep into my portfolio, I wanted to go into why I just chose creative technologies as a major. So when I had transferred to Barry from Chat State, I had no idea it even existed. I had kind of got admitted pretty late into the process when I got accepted into Barry, and kind of happenstance, I ended up in a CRT 100 course. It was just one of the only things available that sounded any kind of interesting to me. Um, Within probably my first day in that course of ground, I decided I was going to declare CRT as my major. I remember after he gave us a brief introduction into what the major is about and what we were going to be doing in that course, the first task was to take 10 minutes and make a functional prototype out of foam core. Now, I had never been tasked to do something creative on a really, really tight time crunch before, not in a school setting at least. And it really, really drew me in. I ended up making a somehow functional, somewhat functional mouse rest, and I ended up using that for the rest of the year. The reason this drew me in is because part of that fail fast, fail forward mentality that is kind of encapsulated in CRT as a whole, and that iterative aspect of making functional prototypes and just doing something with your hands really made me interested in this major. So going into my theme is engineering functional products through parametric 3D modeling and iterative prototyping. Now, to a CRT student or someone who does parametric 3D modeling, that makes perfect sense. I know to a lot of people, it would be best put in an example or two. So the example I have for parametric 3D modeling is best put, think of a picnic table. On the top of this picnic table, you have a bunch of boards on the top for the tabletop. Now let's focus on one of those boards on the tabletop. Let's say it's 2 inches, and you want to change this board width to 2.5 inches. And by changing that one number in parametric 3D modeling, you don't only change that one board, but it affects all the boards if you did your constraints and your parameters properly. Along with that, if you did it even better across the entire project, it wouldn't just affect the tabletop, but it would adjust maybe the bench or the leg to then compensate and keep it uniform. Following on that, for iterative prototyping, I think the best way it's put is an example, very simply. It's like baking a cake. You follow a recipe and you do all right. Maybe the next time you bake the cake, you tweak that recipe and it gets a little better, and so on and so forth. I want you guys to keep this in mind and think if my projects are representative of this theme as I go through. So for my first project, I have a NeoPixel matrix display. This is a 16 by 16 grid of LEDs that's controlled by an Arduino Uno. At the base of this enclosure, you hit the button and it'll cycle through 5 different states and has different animations and functions. As you can see in this second image with the foam on it, this is like a rainbow state. It also has a checkered state, a clear state. So the moment you plug it in, you have the option to have it off instead of always on. And then also I included a sprite state, which goes through 2 different frames. The way this ties into iterative prototyping, it was kind of my first step into it and probably my most technical for when I was early in the major, my most technical project. I started with just figuring out how to control the matrix, getting used to the Arduino code and that kind of thing, figuring out how I was going to do those states. When I got pretty comfortable and happy with all my different states, then I wanted to figure out how I wanted this to look in an enclosure. When I had done this first prototype with the foam, with the rainbow state as you see there, I realized that I didn't like how much the colors kind of blended into each other, and I really wanted to create a good barrier between each individual pixel. The way that I compensated for that was I created a grid design that could be laser cut and then create a good divider between each individual pixel that I laser cut out of plywood. And ultimately, I then needed to design a enclosure to encapsulate all of that. Now, I didn't design this from scratch. I borrowed it from an open source project for making a matrix display. I did modify it a little bit. I created a port for power for a barrel jack, as well as creating a hole, which you don't see in this version of it, for the button. And the initial version of this model was a little too thick, so I also altered the thickness of the front face because I wanted it to be more translucent. One, because I liked the diffusion level when it was a bit thinner instead of 2 mil. I wanted it to be 1 millimeter. And just to be able to see that division even clearer. Going back to the beginning of the project, I kind of want you to think of it how the entire thing's made up, starting from the front to the back. So you start with the front of the enclosure, and then you have those stacked grid patterns. Following that, you have the matrix grid that goes and slots into that. After that, I put a backing of foam core, and then you have your electronics and the Uno and everything. And then there's four standoffs that go to a back plate that is held on with Velcro that can be wall hung. And the reason I did Velcro is because I wanted users to be able to attach and disattach the back plate. So if they wanted to, they could put their own designs and patterns by plugging into the Arduino Uno in the future. So this brings me, I am currently working an internship for Dream Team Commercial. One of the first projects, and they gave me a hard one right out the gate, was for a company called La Petite Academy. They are a preschool company where they run preschools and build the infrastructure for them. They are branching out into the East Coast. My task for this job was to create a bunch of different models, whether that be cubbies and drawings, whether that be cubbies, child vanities, changing tables, upper cabinets, lower cabinets, things of that nature. On your left, you can see here is one of the mini versions of the cubbies. It's a 16 slot cubby. And on your right, this is one of the two versions of the changing tables. There was one for infants and one for toddlers. The changing tables were definitely the hardest part of this project. They had the most intricate details to it. So as you watch this, I'll describe it. This is a grayscale type of model. It's a grayscale digital walkthrough that I made for La Petite. The idea here is with grayscale modeling is to create a 2-scale space to then take your higher fidelity prototypes, and in my case models, and put them in it so you can see how it fits into that space, how it looks in that space without having a lot of distraction. And I think for La Petite, it made a very straightforward way of visualizing and clearly seeing how all of my models were going to look in these different spaces. So what came of this project? We got the deal. And by we, I mean Dream Team Commercial, because I'm an intern. But I believe that as of right now, the work hasn't started. It'll start in the next few years. The current bid is anywhere from 2.5 million all the way up to 5 million for the initial job, depending on how many they do. After that first phase, they could get the next bid and it could go into the tens of millions. I know that pretty much the sky's the limit, given Petite is investing billions and billions of dollars on building the infrastructure on the East Coast, especially the Southeast. So sky's the limit there. I learned a lot in this project about what I like and what I don't like. Some of the things that I learned that I like is I really, really like that back and forth with managers and going through them to talk to La Petite and that kind of thing, and making iterative improvements on those models to better meet clients' needs. I had never had that like professional interaction to then improve on my prototypes before, my products, my models. One thing that I really didn't like was making drawings. I'm pretty bad at it. I did the best that I could. I also realized that it could be that the software I'm using, Fusion, might not be the best for making blueprints. So that could tie into it, but it just wasn't ideal for me. I would say for the difficulties on this project, the most difficult thing was this changing table, as I mentioned prior. The going back and forth, making sure that you see the barrier there. The glass barrier was to keep the changing area and the food separated when they're prepping the food for the infants and toddlers. It had to be the right length, the right height, and keep an upper cabinet divided from the two so there wasn't cross-contamination, as well as making sure that all of the sink cutouts in these changing tables was going to be able to fit, be the right dimension so kids couldn't get into cabinets and that kind of thing, and be able to fit in the proper changing table within the overall parameters of the project where I couldn't make it too long as a whole. So fitting in the very, very tight sink cutouts along with the changing table and all of those different constraints on the project is very, very difficult. That brings me into my capstone project. And this is ModLight, where I made a mod kit for the Logitech G502X to lower the weight and improve the comfort. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of this project, I wanted to preface it with why is modifying a mouse important? It is kind of a niche, but it's a much larger niche and a much larger community than you would realize on the surface. This is probably one of the best gaming mice ever sold, and it's probably well into the tens, maybe even hundreds of millions over its period of being a product. One of my evidences for why making it lighter is important is Logitech themselves and the broader community of manufacturers are all trying to make it lighter. This could be in part due to the gaming, the professional gaming and the competitiveness of esports getting so popular. All of them are going to lighter and lighter mouse to get a performance. That's not really the goal of this project, but as a ripple effect of that in the manufacturing process, all of the mice, especially this one, is getting lighter and lighter. My evidence for that is this mouse in the G502 Non-X, the prior generation for it, was around 140 grams and came with weights that are addable. This newest version is the G502X that they've released was 100 grams with no weights added. And this is their heaviest SKU of mouse, and it's trending lighter. And there is clearly an urge that they see within the customers trying to get it lighter and lighter, as well as making ultralight mice for gaming. So in this project, I had 3 goals to get to 1 outcome. Those goals include maintaining the project to be the same quality and comfort level as the original, getting the weight to 60 grams, and making it, as since it's a mod kit, as repeatable and accessible to as many people as easily as possible. Going to my first project proof, 4 out of 5 users in my user testing, or 80% of the users, said that the mouse exceeded their expectations for comfort, or at least matched the original quality of the original product, which for a $140, $160 mouse, at least on release, I think it's on sale for like $120 right now, I'm pretty happy with. I think that's a success. There was one user tester, and he probably had the most experience. He had owned a G502 prior, had said that in his subjective opinion, with all of the reduced area, with all the holes on the most light model in this diamond pattern you see here, it just wasn't quite as comfortable to him. And then I showed him a 2-gram variant, a 2-gram heavier variant, where it had a honeycomb pattern on the top, and he had changed it to where it at least matched the comfort and quality of the original. So with a slight tweak for different consumers and slightly adding more weight for certain issues like that, I think it matched and sorted that problem as I was going through the process and iterating on it. Into my weight reduction proof, my original target was 60 grams, and the reason that I shot for that is it's considered the ultralight category of mice. My proof for that is Logitech has a G Pro X ultralight mouse, and that ranges around 63 grams. Very early into my user testing and my committee meetings with Zane and other members of CRT, we kind of realized when I showed them, I have a G Pro X Superlight as well that I compared to the original product of this, the G502X, and the original is 100 grams, the G Pro X being 63. And upon them getting that initial interaction of taking this slightly larger mouse with a lot more functions and the ergonomic shape, they thought 63 grams might be a little too light, and the Goldilocks zone would probably be around 70 grams. So about a month into my testing and just getting that feedback early on, I had changed the initial goal from 60 to 70 grams, and I thought that would be more ideal for this mouse's shape and size. As a final result, as you see in this image, I got it down to 75 grams. That is a weight reduction from 100 to 75, or an overall 25% reduction, and I did that while maintaining the function and feel according to my user tested results. For my third and final project proof, in the repeatability and accessibility for this project, if you look on your left, you see my Maker World page. In this, you can go and download all my files. They're free and they're open source. And I did a lot on this page that you can't really see on the surface, where I went into the different slicing settings, making sure you do the right layer height, have it angled properly to make sure it goes as seamlessly as possible. Additionally to that, I linked it to different things you might need, replacement skates. If you want to go ultra as light as the mod can go, you get a replacement battery and a link to the Instructables guide, as you see here on the right. On this Instructables guide, it starts off with disassembling the mouse. You go through, I give a lot of really high fidelity, high quality photos that give you comments and instructions while highlighting where to get the intricate details that take it apart. As you go through that process and you get it fully disassembled, then I would bring you to the next step, which is to go to my Maker World page, as I described before, download those files, remove the supports, remove the supports, and get it ready to then go to the assembly phase now that you have everything you need for the mod kit. And the assembly phase is kind of a mirror of that disassembly, but for doing the making it into the mod kit version. Same thing, you got the in-depth photos, the high quality photos with all the comments giving you very, very in-depth detail on how to complete this project. So am I the first person to do this? As I mentioned, it is a very, very large niche and a very large community. And there is already people who are modifying this mouse to make it as light as they can. I am the first person to get it to 75 grams and it be functional that I know of in the world, especially with it being free. And as you can see here, there is a lot of attempts at it, whether that be taking a Dremel and just cutting off pieces of the mouse, or doing the exact same thing, but not getting it quite to the same function level, having to remove function, having to not maintain the shape and change the size and the dynamics of the project. And I don't think that there has been a truly accomplished version of this mod kit publicly available. And if you were to try to get the STLs on this page, you'd have to pay for them, about anywhere from $20 to $30. So closing out, I wanted to go over the influence and impact of this project. Starting with this ad on the left, I made a Reddit forum as an ad for my Instructables and my Maker World to get people interested in the project. And to preface this, I put it in a community specifically called G502 Master Race. So I expected these people were going to be purist about the original design, and I thought I would get my harshest feedback from this and get just I wanted to get some pushback because I didn't really get a lot in my user testing, and it's probably because they didn't have the most experience. So I thought going into a community that has the most experience would help me a lot. Going through this forum, I got two main sentiments, two main trains of thought. To start, one user said, "What are the details? Thank you so much. Was about to get a custom version myself." This was really nice to see because it means that I was reaching a lot of my target audience, where the people who are proactively already looking for this person was clearly looking to buy one, so now he can get it open source as well. There was a lot of people in the forum. It was the minority, as I expected, because it's a niche within a niche. Um, but they're able to find it and get it now, and they were super excited to finally see something that was at the quality level and just able to get it because it didn't exist before. As well as, to be fair, the majority of the thread felt it needs weight added, not reduced. I don't really see this as a discouraging factor. I think there's a lot of people who are true to the original form of projects, and when change comes, they're heavily resistant to it. But it wasn't my target demographic to get the people who want to keep the mouse the same. It was to get the people who wanted to change the mouse. Before I move on from this, I wanted to go over just the sheer impact I've had so far. I posted all of these pages within the last 4 days, and collectively I've gotten over 35,000 views in that short period of time. Up to 30,000 in the first 2 days, so pretty drastic, a lot more than I initially anticipated. And that's between the Maker World, the Reddit, and the Instructables. So what are my future plans? I currently plan on interning or working as an apprentice for the Tennessee Valley Authority in Chattanooga, Tennessee, in the Operations and Infrastructure Tools Department. Other than that, I am finishing up one more semester, sadly. I'm stuck here. But yeah, that is my presentation.